Stop trying to write the perfect letter to fix your dysfunctional family. There's way too many women out there who are desperately trying to find a logical explanation to what happened, or why their adult children chose estrangement, or why their relationships fell apart. They're convinced that if they can just explain their side clearly enough, if we can just have that talk, the chaos will stop and the relationship will magically be healed. Except it won't. Family conflict and toxic family dynamics are not a math problem. They're not an if-then statement. If I do this or they do this, then the results I want will happen. Unfortunately, family breakdowns don't follow a logical script. The conventional advice out there tells you that you just need to keep trying, that you need to send another text, maybe a gift, or you need to just find the right words to magically fix everything. If you've tried it, you probably already know that it doesn't work. And there's a hidden dagger in it. That is, that there's an unspoken implication that if what you do isn't working, then you must be doing something wrong, or it really must be all your fault. That's not the case. It's not a character flaw. It isn't that you haven't tried hard enough, and it isn't that there was a lack of perfect words. Whether you know it or not yet, these kind of situations are almost always rooted in generations of unhealed wounds that don't follow any sort of logic, and they will never, ever make sense. As such, you can't use logic to try and decode them or to heal the situation, because it's likely got years of miscommunication and misunderstanding, unspoken family rules, and generational dysfunction that's probably been playing out for decades. Let's talk about what actually answers those questions that you're asking and why the closure that you're seeking won't come from any kind of a logical event. It's like trying to use a math problem to solve a thunderstorm. It's just not going to work. When we're trapped in the logic cycle, we tend to argue about facts and timelines and who did what or who said what. And we think, I was a good mom. I sacrificed everything. So why am I being treated with such contempt? What that logic trap really does is it keeps us focused on our performance as a parent or as a family member. This is what really drives that intense desire to send that long letter or to justify and defend all the things that you've ever done. But estrangement and family breakdowns aren't a performance review. The other person is operating from their own perspective, their own perceptions, and their own unhealed wounds. And what you're really asking them to do is agree on what happened. But the rupture in your family didn't happen within a timeline of events. It happened in the realm of what was felt. The truth is, you probably were a good mom. And even if you weren't, I believe you probably did the best that you could. Even if your best was someone else's lousy, it was still the best that you could do at the time, given the situation, what you knew, and the resources you had available. That doesn't mean you get a free pass, and it doesn't mean there weren't consequences or that the other people were impacted. In fact, the breakdown in relationship is probably telling you that they were. You can be right all the day is long about the facts and the history and what went on, but you don't get to be right about how your choices or your behavior or the way that things happened made them feel. This is where logic completely fails us. Emotional safety doesn't care about data points. It doesn't care who did or didn't do what. The pain isn't, you didn't give me everything, so now I'm going to cut you off. It's that I felt invisible, vulnerable, and unsafe around you, and all those great and grand things you did felt more like a performance or an obligation or a means of controlling me than actual sincerity or generosity. Whether that was actually true or not, I don't know. But it's how they felt, it's what they believed, and it's how they perceived things. And that's the truth that actually sits in the chasm between healthy family connection and estrangement. They can't or won't agree with you on facts because they don't really matter. You have your version and they have theirs. And in most cases, the actual truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. What really had the most influence Was the missing human connection, or the misunderstandings, or the misread intentions? This brings us to the second reason that explaining things often backfires, and that's the myth of the sudden explosion. There's a lot of women out there who feel totally blindsided by what happened. If you ask your family or the people who are looking in from the outside, they'll probably agree with you and say this estrangement came out of nowhere. It's the classic narrative of everything was fine, and suddenly they just cut me off for no reason. And it doesn't seem to make any sense. That's when we tend to revert back to those if-then statements. If everything was fine and now it's not, then something else must have been the problem, right? That's when we start to go looking for that one external catalyst, their partner, the therapist, social media, or anything else to logically blame for the sudden silence. Even if the estrangement or the relationship breakdown feels sudden, it probably wasn't. The sudden silence or the hot explosion is the end result of a very slow, quiet, and often agonizing accumulation of tiny little micro cracks that happen over decades. It's the 100 times that a boundary was ignored or treated as a personal insult or inconvenience or laughed off. It's the 1,000 times you swallowed your truth just to keep the peace at a Sunday dinner. By the time the actual cutoff happens, it's the final, exhausted collapse of a structure that either had a completely missing foundation all along, or it had been quietly breaking and failing for many, many years. Trying to look for a quick, logical answer on the surface completely misses the deeper systemic undercurrents that were likely in play long before they pulled away or before anyone said no more. If you miss that, you'll end up trying to explain the collapse using only the very last brick that fell. Meanwhile, they're looking at that one last brick as freedom. It's not freedom from you or freedom from the relationship that they see. It's freedom from the emotional prison that they've been suffocating in for way too long. They're likely also wondering, why are they making such a big deal of this one brick now? Or this one thing that happened this time? But they can't see the mountain of rubble that's underneath it. So what do we do with all of this? How do we stop this loop of insanity? Right now, if you're in this place, you're stuck in your head. And I assure you, I have been there too. Your head is asking all the questions and it's trying desperately to make sense of all of this or to make any of this heartache mean something. And you're trying desperately to solve a problem that doesn't have a logical solution because it doesn't live in logic. True clarity doesn't come from finding the missing piece or even getting the answers or the apology from the other person. It starts when you choose to pause the mental gymnastics, you stop trying to decode everyone's behavior, and you look honestly at what you are carrying. Your head may be asking the questions, but your heart is carrying all the grief, and your nervous system is carrying the exhaustion. In order for any of that to change, we have to move the questions from your head down into your body. Instead of asking, how do I make them understand? Or how do I make any sense of this? Which actually keeps your energy completely dependent on their reaction. Try asking this. How does this feel inside of me when I keep begging for admission to a place where I'm no longer welcome or that requires me to shrink? Your mind can rationalize sending one more email, and your brain can convince you that maybe this time they will finally hear you. But your body knows the truth. Your body feels the tight chest, the knot in your stomach, and the bone deep exhaustion of trying to convince people that you're not the monster that they said you were. When you move those questions out of your head and let your body answer them, the illusion drops. You realize that explaining yourself or demanding answers from them isn't actually about communication anymore. It's actually a trauma response and a desperate attempt to fix a system that was broken long before you ever knew it was. It's also about your brain and your nervous system trying to protect you from what you never really wanted to see. If you're sitting in this place right now and you've got a phone full of unsent text messages or a heart that feels like it's been through the blender, I get it. I've been there. You do not have to figure this out alone, and you don't have to figure it all out today. You also don't have to fix the family system, and you certainly don't need to write another letter to prove your humanity to people who only valued your utility. Right now, your only job is to find your footing. Because I know how overwhelming estrangement and family collapses are, I put together a free guide called Making Sense of the Mess. It's a simple, no pressure guide to help you sort through all of the noise, the confusing emotions, and all the fragments of what used to be your life so you can finally start to breathe again. It gives you a safe place to stop, to hit the reset button, and to figure out what is actually yours to carry and what you can finally lay down. You can grab a free copy of that by using the link that's down below in the description. If you want to go deeper, that's exactly what I help women do. Just reach out and let me know. But for today, just go grab that free guide and let your nervous system start to settle down. Give yourself permission to let the situation be messy for a little while without having to jump in and try and fix it. Just let it be what it is. If you've still got big feelings swirling around about all this stuff, check out this video right up there about the emotional whiplash that often follows estrangement and family breakdown. It's not a small thing, and you're also really not as nuts as you might feel. Then I want you to remember that peace doesn't require things to finally make sense. It requires you to stop trying to force an illogical dynamic to be logical. You're not alone in this. Peace is closer than you might think it is right now. Check out that video and I'll meet you over there.